This is Steve Sampson and Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. Before we talk to Jim Jonas, just want to make sure we get the guest out the way. We're going to have DiGeronimo. I hope I pronounced that correctly. DiGeronimo. He's a Republican candidate from Hawaiian's 2nd Congressional District. Because, you know, we got a chapter up there, Jim Jonas.
Yeah, I just didn't know we had Republicans in Hawaii, but...
Oh, you didn't know that?
No. I didn't think Hawaiians
were... You see, that's what the show is all about, educating people.
There you go.
You just got educated.
And I appreciate it, Steve.
That's right. That's $5.50. And then we're going to have Danny Tarkanian, who's the Republican candidate for Nevada's newest Congressional District 4. You know we have Republicans in Nevada, right?
Oh, no, I know that.
Oh, you knew that one?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, they call themselves Republicans.
Oh, so what are you, a Tea Party person?
No, not necessarily. I'm just saying that a lot of people call them Rhino, so.
Ah, because, you know, I'm a coffee drinker myself.
You're a coffee drinker?
Yeah.
Not a Kool-Aid drinker, right?
No, I don't flavor my water, baby.
No, okay.
I get juice. Freshly squeezed, 100%. Thank you.
All right.
So that's how we roll.
Okay.
In my household. We don't disturb the water. I get sparklets.
Really?
Yeah, sparklets water. I don't mess with it. I don't add any artificial flavor or colorant in my water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why not?
Because that sugar rots your teeth, and I got to go see a dentist. Then what?
So you don't want flavor? I mean, you don't want spice in your life? What are you saying?
No, I love spice in my life, baby. You know, I like a little Tabasco every once in a while, but I don't want to mess with my water. I pay $8 a jug for that.
Because basically what I'm getting from you right now is you're talking about like you're this pure guy, so you must be a Republican.
Yeah, I'm a Republican.
Oh, okay, that's good. And by the way, so am I.
Really?
Yeah.
But you know, I might have a little bit of Democratic stuff in me. Maybe there's a lot of stuff that Republicans do that I don't agree with.
Right.
And there's a lot of Democrats do that I don't agree with.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the fact that Tom Collins isn't going to be prosecuted?
Well, you know what?
I had to go there because that kind of confuses me.
Is that something that's unusual? Yeah. That Tom Collins was going to be prosecuted by the AG's office? Hey, what's more funny is that the district attorney's office recused himself.
Yeah, that's interesting how that works.
Yeah, and they said, well, because Tom Collins helped, voted for him to be in office, but so did Commissioner Steve Sisolak. But yet he's going to help Sisolak out to go after Kathleen Vermillion, who was a former city councilwoman. No. So isn't that a conflict too?
Yes, it is.
So why accept one and not the other? See, that's why I said that thing last week to District Attorney Steve Wolfson that some people feel that they're above the law. They pick and choose what they want to go after. They don't treat everybody the same. Everybody gets freaking profiled.
And the thing is I'm not trying to beat up on Commissioner Collins. I mean, we all make mistakes and things happen.
Right.
But it's just kind of like what you just said. I mean, how do we pick and choose who we're going to prosecute and who we aren't? And then it's just funny how sometimes they say, oh, well, I got to recuse myself. But in other cases, they don't recuse themselves.
You want to know something, Jim Jonas? Speaking of Commissioner T.O.M. Collins, his real name is Clarence Weldon Collins Jr.
Okay.
Why you think he changed his name? I mean, apparently he didn't do it legally. I mean, he just does it politically. He's Tom Collins. Why you think he didn't use Clarence? Does it sound too black and Tom sounds a little more white, maybe?
I don't know.
I'm on this black and white issue. I've been on it for the past several weeks now.
It's kind of interesting to bring up the name of Clarence because, my grandfather, and by the way, wasn't black.
You're kidding me. I thought you were mixed.
His first name was Clarence.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with Clarence.
No.
What do you think? What do you think? Commissioner Collins is some kind of actor? He had to change his name to appeal to the the movie, what's that? The moviegoers?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I just think, just in general, just a general statement here. I mean, I think, well, actually, I'm not going to make it just a general statement. I'll be specific. It's stuff like this that really pisses the public off, that they hear this stuff consistently over and over and over again. And what do you think voter turnout is as low as it is? Now, you and I always push, and Veterans in Politics pushes for the public to really engage in the political process and to research these candidates and understand what these candidates are all about and make informed decisions.
Right.
But when you have the news, and I'm not blaming the newspapers and the media because they're reporting facts.
Oh, really? All of them?
And not all of them, but I'm just saying they're reporting what they're hearing.
Uh-huh.
And you get stuff like this. This guy changes his name. The prosecutor's not going to prosecute him because there's not enough facts. It just
disheartening.
Yeah, and it seems like there's just a good old boy network out there that my dad pretty much told me, he goes, I just throw my hands up in there. I don't care.
And you know what? It's just like when we had District Attorney Steve Wolfson here, and he was talking about he want to prosecute that officer who was kicking the diabetic victim in the head 5 times. And although we all know that if you kick someone in the head, it's a sign of a deadly force.
Right.
And he kicked him in the head 5 times with 5 cops on top of him. And DA didn't want to prosecute him because he said that's how he was trained. And that's, I don't think that's the reason why. I think he let that cop go because he knows that if he wants to get reelected, he has to go in front of the PPA, Police Protective Association. He has to go in front of the marshal supervisors. He has to go in front of the Metro's Political Action Committee. He has to go in front of all these law enforcement agencies to collect endorsements and funding so he get reelected or elected in in his case. So that's probably why he didn't go after that cop. And I found it criminal, to be honest with you, that elected officials won't do their job as an elected official because they're scared about the repercussion when they go up for election or reelection. I think it's sad. I think it's criminal.
Yeah, and I do too. And actually, that brings up a good point about what I just said about how it's disheartening as a voter when you hear about all this stuff. But so voters and listeners out there, don't get discouraged. What you need to do is do what Steve and I and Veterans of Politics does, and there's a lot of active people out there that do this. If you educate yourself in these issues and you understand these things that are going on, go out there and you vote. You educate yourself on who's right, who's wrong, and then you don't have this good old boy network. We have to break up the good old boy network, and the only way that that's going to happen is if you expose yourself to these issues, you educate yourself, and you vote this stuff down.
Exactly. You know, speaking of educating yourself, here the Veterans in Politics was pushing the Veterans Court for all these years. Testified for a Veterans Court, pushed for a Veterans Court, met with legislators, met with judges, met with prosecutors, met with defense counsel for a Veterans Court, met with veterans for a Veterans Court. And here you have this silly little anti-war protester, Assemblyman Elliot Anderson, who's trying to take credit for what we've been doing for years. He didn't even know the word Veterans Court in 2009. Sure as hell didn't know it in 2010. And this little anti-war protester is going to go and try to take credit for it. You know, if I was him, I would say, I want to thank all the men and women from Veterans in Politics and other groups who push for Veterans Court, and Judge Jennifer Elliott, who pushed for Veterans Court, and Assemblywoman Barbara Buckley, who sponsored the Veterans Court bill, and State Senator Sheila Leslie, who's actively working in Veterans Court in Washoe County and Churchill. these people just want to take credit for something they didn't do originally so they can get reelected. You don't hear him talk about how he protested against the war while our men and women were going to war and fighting back in 2006 and 7, while he was out there actively becoming an anti-war protester in front of the Foley Federal Building with 79 other stupid people that was protesting against the war, which is protesting against our troops, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, you don't hear anything about that.
You're either pro-mission or not. Elliot's a worm.
He is a worm.
He is a worm. And I just want to say that, I mean, Veterans in Politics as an organization has done a great job with the Veterans Court, but I want to recognize you personally, Steve, because I don't think people, the listeners out there, I mean, some of them do, but most listeners don't understand the effort that you put into that, and you put into it daily. So I just want to recognize you for that.
You know, so speaking of putting effort, and you got these weasels that are trying to duplicate veterans in politics now,
the governor,
and try to do their interviews and stuff like that.
Close
like that one named Charles Baker, who's trying to get this Fleet Reserve thing and trying to interview candidates, and he's supposed to be every time you see him, he tell you he's dying. I mean, of brain cancer. I mean, he's been saying that he's been dying for the past year or so, and he's still walking around. In fact, I saw him at the Henderson Mayor Hafen's fundraiser, and he was doing this, and he did this endorsement of candidates trying to duplicate the veterans in politics efforts, which I think it's sad, and I think that it's not original. I mean, why are you going to bite off of what we've been doing? You know, why don't you be original and do your own thing? You know what I mean?
Right. Or at least take our idea and just, you know,
these
add
wannabes
on to it.
And they're only doing it for themselves.
Oh yeah.
It's only a self-serving issue. That's all it is. It's just for them. It's not about the community or anything like that.
Wow.
But you know, speaking of veterans or somewhat veterans, we're going to have a veteran medical hospital $600 million later, but we're going to have one pretty quickly and years behind schedule, but we're going to have one. So I want to give a shout out to becoming a reality.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
finally.
I guess so. Shelley Berkeley can actually
yeah, I'd like to thank
finish off on that.
Congresswoman Shelley Berkeley for making that a reality, although her the other folks that just come into office, come into Congress, and come into the U.S. Senate is going to want to take credit for that. You know, they always do.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course they do. And I just want to give a moment of silence for that Navy veteran, Jonathan Blunk, who did 3 tours in the Middle East, and to get killed at a Colorado movie theater to watch Batman is a very, very sad thing. And people always say, hey, why do you carry your guns? Why do you carry your guns with you all the time? I mean, you just never know where these things are going to take place or when you're going to be in a position that you're going to have to defend yourself or your loved ones. It's always those places you don't think things are going to happen. That's where things actually happen, where you think it's not going to happen. So let's take a moment of silence for that. And what's this thing about the Fox News is reporting that President Obama's campaign is suing Ohio over early voting for voting amongst military servicemen. Did you hear about that?
Actually, I don't. I heard about it briefly. I don't know too much about the case. I do find it kind of ironic because the Obama administration seems to really beat up on disenfranchising voters. However, you know, Eric Holder, who's the Attorney General, didn't prosecute Black Panthers standing outside of, ironically enough, in the state of Ohio, polling booth with baseball bats threatening white people not to vote. So, I mean, I just think it's just in general, I don't really see
hear about that.
Yeah, I just don't see it as a race issue so much. I think it's just more of Republicans want more Republicans to vote and Democrats want more Democrats to vote.
Yeah. But why mess with the military? Is why would the Democratic Party and the Obama campaign mess with the military?
They shouldn't, but polling data shows that more active military people tend to vote Republican, and then once they retire, and we've had this conversation before,
they go Democrat.
They go Democrat. So well, I don't know. It's unfortunate either way.
Well, you have anything else?
No, I don't have anything else.
Well, you know what? Let's take a quick commercial break. Excuse me, and we're going to come back with Matt DiGeronimo, Republican candidate for Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District.
Hey, listen up. If you're a military veteran, if you're related to a veteran, or if you know a veteran, you'll enjoy the Veterans Reporter radio show every Thursday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. with me. I'm your host, Chuck N. Baker. Every week, we will explore veterans' issues and we'll have guests who will talk about topics of interest to and about the veterans community. And if you don't listen, you'll have to give me 20 push-ups.
This is Jim Jonas asking you to listen to Veterans in Politics. Veterans in Politics is a weekly broadcast internet talk show hosted by myself, Jim Jonas, and Steve Sanson, president of Veterans in Politics Incorporated, that airs every Saturday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. at www.vegasallnetradio.com. Veterans in Politics' sole purpose is to teach, educate, and inform veterans on issues and the candidates that will affect them. Too many politicians say they support veterans and their issues, but their actions tell a different story. Here at Veterans in Politics, we will expose these politicians by giving them a chance to come in and explain their actions to veterans so veterans can truly make informed decisions. Listen every Saturday to stay informed and to hold politicians accountable for their votes.
Well, we're back. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas of Veterans in Politics. And folks, I know a lot of our commercials, they say veteransinpolitics.com, but we recently changed it to .org because we had to do a server change, and that really had us lose years. Well, we still got all the files, Jim, for all that website, but it's just not up, and it's years and years and years of file stuff that's not up. But the org got one page up, and it looks nice, but it's not what we've been doing since 1993, actually. So, without further ado, let's talk to Matt DiGeronimo, Republican candidate for Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District. Matt, how you doing?
Very good, Steve. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Could you give us a little bio about yourself, Matt?
Yeah, sure. Originally from Hackensack, New Jersey. Enlisted in the Navy. Did that for a couple of years, and the Navy said, "Hey, we'll send you to school. You come back as an officer." I took them up on that. Got a degree in nuclear engineering. Came back in as a commissioned officer, and just recently retired after a career in mostly nuclear submarines, but I also, because I volunteered and demanded, spent just shy of 2 years in the desert in the Middle East doing a handful of things that submarine guys typically don't do, and also was an instructor and an inspector in between all that.
So how's Hawaii?
That's awesome, right? I mean, that's I had orders to Hawaii in 2006. And I've never left, and we'll leave periodically when I have to make my trips to D.C. when Congress is in session, but this is where my wife Amy and I are growing roots.
Hey, Matt, this is Jim Jonas. One quick question for you. You're running as a Republican in Hawaii. How's that going for you?
That's tough. But it's the wave of the future, right? Everything that we stand for, everything in my platform, everything that I will accomplish when we get to D.C. is very consistent with the way that people here in Hawaii, especially in the 2nd District, live their life, view life. the practice of voting for the Democratic candidate is really just one that is more sort of like that's just kind of what we do, and they don't know why. And they don't know why. And my campaign is just as much about educating the voters as it is asking for their vote.
Well, so Matt, I mean, when you talk about educating the voters, and the main reason why I asked that question is because I mean, here in Nevada, we're supposedly a swing state, but especially here in Las Vegas, I mean, it's a very liberal county. So when you talk about educating the voters, what kind of what kind of resources do you have available to you to be able to do that? I mean, as far as money, how much money have you raised?
Well, hold on. Before I answer that question, that's actually part of the problem, right? The system is the system, in my opinion. The fact that the very first question we ask people is how much money have you raised is a reflective of a serious, deep-rooted disease that the machine has. I mean, I shouldn't have to raise any money to convince somebody to vote for me, right? So, in terms of political funds, we're doing just fine. We're doing just fine. If we get through the primary on Saturday, we will have enough money to go head-to-head with our competitor, who's raised a lot more money than we have. But that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. And so when we were able to win this election and look back on it and say, look, we won this with 1/10 of the budget. And therefore that gives me the credibility to say, can we stop assuming that the amount of money you spend on a project is directly proportional to how much you care about it and the effectiveness of it?
Well, Matt, I agree with you 100%. When I actually ran for the state assembly here in the state of Nevada in 2008, and I ran against the Speaker of the House, and she raised $375,000, and I raised $7,000. And I brought up the same point you did. So I agree with you 100%. So what's your strategy to win so that you can be that voice in Congress that makes that statement that you just made to me? So how are you going to win with very little money and prove that it can be done and you can change things?
Yeah, one voter at a time. I mean, we have in every single situation that we've been in, whether it's been 2 people or 50 people, when we have the opportunity to actually voice ourselves in a forum that's not just limited to 30 seconds, we've walked away with volunteers, supporters, donators, regardless of what their previous political affiliations were. And the meetings that used to be 2 or 3 people, are now 100 people, 200 people. The numbers are there. I mean, even the last time this seat was open, which was in 2006, and the Republican candidate did something very similar to what you just described. As a lot of times the contender of the minority party does is raise a little bit of money, but just generally just is kind of just slugging it out. That we're expected the Republicans going to get 40% of the vote. That's what we can expect. Just if you do nothing else, that's just a 5% swing. And in my district, that's not a huge number of people. That's 7,500 people. And so that's not 7,500 is something that I can do, one at a time, just by sharing our message. I mean, and it's not a fluffy message. I mean, it's there's part of it that's founded in my experiences in the military, but there's also a handful of issues that I have absolutely the system nailed to the wall. I mean, I'm ready to show Hawaii how within several months I can reduce shipping costs in Hawaii by 50%. That's 50%. Guarantee it. Hold me accountable for it.
Hey, Matt, you know that, are you familiar with our organization, Veterans in Politics?
Absolutely, I am.
You are. So you know that we've been around since 1993, and we just recently made it to Hawaii last year with the help of several veterans, including Dennis Egi, who is the president of the Hawaiian chapter. And Nick Starlin is the one that came down there and put Veterans in Politics in Hawaii, who's our chief executive officer. And Nick told me that you placed a phone call to him after you found out that we endorsed your opponent, and that you were very disrespectful using the F language. You had a problem controlling your temper and emotions, and you said that the Veterans in Politics is not a liable organization. Is any of those statements are true?
Oh, that's, Steve, that's so awesome that you had that conversation and that you're giving me the opportunity to tell my side of the story. Because the reality is Nick with us?
No, he's listening though. But
okay. It'd be pretty cool if we could get him on the line.
He can't speak, but he can listen.
Okay. I mean, just because if we want to just kind of put all the cards on the table, it might be nice if we could get him on the line.
No, but go ahead. What were you saying, Matt?
Okay. I mean, just because, obviously, like, you and I haven't met, right? You say, this is your show, you bring me on, and then it's like, okay, hey, did all this bad stuff happen, right? And there's some truth to what you said. And the reality is, just kind of, if you want to hear my side of the story,
sure.
I made contact with Veterans in Politics. So I reached out way before he came to Hawaii. I reached out and I made a phone call. I was like, hey, this organization would be great, because, to be honest, there's a lot of veterans organizations out there that are just fronts for other special interests. The Vote for Vets is a perfect example. I contacted them and their response to me was nice try. Literally. I'm a retired combat veteran, and I contacted them and they said, yeah, nice try. That's all they said. And so there's some shark-infested waters out there. And, my patience is running a little bit thin with that. And, I contacted Veteran Politics way before you guys came out here. I got a phone call back like a day or so later. My phone rings off the hook, right? So there's a voicemail. I called back. Somebody called me. And this could have even been you. Because I'm not sure exactly who I called. I called back. They called me. So we played phone tag for a couple of days, right?
Okay.
I'm meeting with Duke Iona, who's just a friend of mine, former lieutenant governor, and he says, hey, I was involved in the strangest endorsement group the other day. They actually endorsed Kavika, your opponent. I was like, how'd that happen? They said, I don't know. They said, before we started, Duke was one of the staff, or one of the panelists, and they said, I don't know. They said that they had given everyone 24 hours notice, and whoever showed up, they were going to endorse, and that was it. And if the opponents didn't show up, well, then they would just endorse whoever did show up. And I was like, that's bizarre. And he's like, I know, but that's what we did. So I was like, that doesn't seem right. Especially knowing what's publicly available by the organization. So I called Nick, and to be honest, I felt like I could not talk to him man to man. Like, I was trying to get through okay, I get it. We give 24 hours notice because, when I was Army Ranger, we in 10 hours, we had to get all our stuff and be anywhere internationally within 30 days, and, there's a certain amount of respect that goes with being a veteran. That doesn't end when you retire. But whoa, slow down. Who are you talking to? I'm a retired lieutenant commander. You're not my chain of command. I'm just trying to figure out, does it make sense to come all the way out here to Hawaii, give 24 hours notice to everyone, and then just endorse whoever shows up? That doesn't make sense.
Well, thank you so much for explaining that to us, Matt. How could the listeners get a hold of you?
It's our website, mdforcongress.com, where the 4 is the number 4.
Okay.
It's probably the easiest way, and pretty easy to find on Facebook and Twitter as well.
All right. Well, we're going to be making a trip over to Hawaii within the next 6 months, so I'm probably looking forward to meeting with you.
So that's it. That's the purpose of having me on the show, is to call me out about that one phone call with Nick.
No. The purpose you came on the show is because your campaign asked to come on the show. So
yeah, sure. So can we talk politics or no?
Oh well, the time's up. We got to go. We got to move on to our next guest.
All right. So All right. Well, hey, it was good chatting with you. And if all I can say is, look, I am a veteran looking to bring common sense to D.C. to support veterans across the nation. I think we're on the same side. It's unfortunate that despite the strength of our enemy, that there'd be a divide like this between my campaign and your organization.
Well, hold on a second, Matt. Hold on. Okay, sure. And in all fairness, Steve asked you a question, but we talked about politics before. I asked you why you were running for office, what your platform was. So we discussed politics before. Steve wanted to clear the air about a discussion that you had with Nick Starling. And we wanted to do that specifically so you could explain your side to the story. So it wasn't a gotcha question. You explain it, and we appreciate you coming on. But don't say that, okay, the purpose for you coming on was specifically a gotcha question for the conversation now with Nick Starling. We brought you on because we wanted you to clarify, and we appreciate you very much for coming on, and we hope and we wish you all the best in your campaign. And I know how difficult it is running for office when, a lot of people ask you questions like we just asked. How much money have you raised and certain things like that. So we wish you all the luck. We appreciate your service. So just don't think that was a gotcha conversation. We wouldn't ask you to come on and invite you onto this program if that was the case. Okay, Max?
You did, and just so your readers know, just so your listeners know, and they're going to judge for themselves, right? It doesn't matter what you and I think.
Exactly.
They'll judge for themselves, and most of your listeners will be like, yeah, they called that dude on to call him out for that thing. But just so you know, your organization, and I wasn't going to bring it up, I was hoping we could talk politics, your organization endorsed my opponent, who has never served a day in his life, could give about veterans, and you didn't even ask him any questions. And the only reason he was endorsed is because he was the guy that was there. And if you're going to travel around the world giving all these very busy people 24 hours of notice and then just endorse whoever's there, in my humble opinion, you are diluting the strength of your endorsement because it doesn't mean as much anymore. Because it's not based on anything other than who can show up with 24 hours notice. Okay,
Matt. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming on. We appreciate your opinion, and we'll just agree to disagree on that issue. So
you don't want to address that? That's not something you want to address with your listeners?
Well,
is it fair for your listeners to know why you have a policy of whoever can show up? That's what you'll endorse. No,
that's not true. I can run a list all day long. People that if you don't show up, you're not going to get endorsed. We either endorse or we don't.
No, but you
have a good day.
Americans have been fooled by politicians about illegal immigration. They make you think that if you bring up this topic, you are a racist. Did you know that America is the only country on this planet that does not enforce its federal immigration laws? For the fear of being called a racist. I am for legal immigration. I was born on the island of Jamaica, became an American citizen, served 12 years in the U.S. military, served in Desert Storm, and received a Presidential Unit Citation, National Defense Medal, and Marine Corps Commendation. Our immigration laws serve a purpose. I understand that this country was founded on immigration, but there is a wrong way and a right way. I'm here to tell you that illegal immigration is breaking our federal laws. Why don't you call me a racist? This is Steve Sanson.
Hello, Las Vegas. I'm Karen Steelman, president of Las Vegas Tea Party, bringing your voice to the air Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Are you tired of politics as usual? Do you want to be more involved? Do you want to put a stop to out-of-control government policies? On We the People, we will discuss the political topics of the day and find real solutions. No parties, no labels, just Americans. Be here Wednesdays at 7.
Well, we're back. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Danny Tarkanian, Republican candidate for Nevada's newest congressional district, number 4. You know what? If Danny takes this, he'd be the first person to fill that seat.
Yep.
Yeah, because of our population.
That's correct.
In the Northwest area.
So it's actually, it went up prior to the census. I wonder what it is now, though.
Yeah. Anyways. Danny, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Good to be on.
Danny, could you give us your background?
Sure. I spent most of my life growing up here in Southern Nevada. Moved here when I was 11. Went to high school at Bishop Gorman High School, and then went on to UNLV. Graduated in 1984. Had the opportunity to play for my father on the UNLV basketball team from 81 to 84. And I'm very proud to say we were the first UNLV team in school history to be ranked number 1 in the country in 1982-83. After graduating, I went to law school in the University of San Diego School of Law and graduated magna cum laude. Came back to Las Vegas, practiced law for 7 years. Then I went with my father. He had a final coaching job at Fresno State, and I went to be his assistant. I worked with him for 7 years. Met my lovely wife, Amy, in Fresno. Got married in 2001, and the proud father of 4 children, all of them here in the studio. And if you hear any noise, it's going to be one of them. My oldest daughter, Lois, is 9. I have twin girls, Ava and Ashley, and my 2.5-year-old son, Jerry, named after my father. In 2002, I opened up the Tarkanian Basketball Academy, which is a nonprofit group working with young children, trying to teach them not only the skills that you play basketball with, but also the life skills that you learn through playing sports. We have a 32,000 square foot facility for a nonprofit group, and we run probably close to 500 kids a session through there. It's a very, very proud of our facility and our program. And I also have a real estate company where we basically is a large development of a commercial center here in Las Vegas that we're in the process of finalizing the final leases and hopefully get that one completed.
So, Danny, the first question I have for you is, I was kind of confused, and I want you to clear this up for me. Of the last time I interviewed you, I believe you were running for Senate in the primary at that time.
What Senate? U.S. or state?
U.S. Senate. And I was very. We had a discussion on air about that. I just didn't feel like that the Republican Party had a true leader here in the state of Nevada, and I didn't think that Senator Ensign at the time, and Senator Ensign was taking the lead, or the governor was taking the lead about a true leader. And then after you didn't win the primary, then Amy became the
my wife.
Amy, your wife, the chair of the Republican Party, and I was very pleased that happened, because I was like, okay, finally we have a leader.
When you say governor, what were you talking about? When Gibbons was governor?
Yeah, when Gibbons was governor, and I just didn't think he stepped up to the plate to be in charge. And so when you decided to run for CD4, then Amy was the state chair at the time. I thought finally we had a leader, and then she had to she resigned so that you could run for CD4. So I'm kind of confused on why you would run for CD4 and and have Amy step down from that seat.
No, first of all, I ought to give my background politically, too. I ran for the state senate in 2004 and lost in a district that was 19% more Democrats. Then I ran against the governor's son for the Secretary of State in 2006, won the primary, lost in the general to him, and then I lost in the 2010 primary for the U.S. Senate race to Sharon Angle. So I've been around the Republican Party for a long time, and the one thing I will agree with your statement is the party has been void of leadership from the national and statewide sense, where you have not so much a figurehead, but one person who goes out and says, hey, we need to properly fund, organize, and energize our base so that we can have a strong party, and then support candidates all the way down the ticket. And as a result of us not having a strong organization like that, I've had a tough time in some of those previous races, as you did in yours and some others. So it certainly is something that was needed. And I guess there's a second thing I agree with you on. My wife ran for the state chair, and she was by far the best state chair I've ever seen. And I don't say that just because she's my wife. She was incredibly impressive in the way she handled herself, handled the party, her relationship she had with the national people, her fundraising efforts, way that she handled the media. She was actually perfect for it. But for you to make a distinction between couldn't run or shouldn't have run because she was a state chair, I think not only is inaccurate, it's completely unfair. First of all, I put in a lot of time trying to be a public servant for the state, and I think I will be a great public servant for the state. When I lost the Senate race, it was very well known that I was looking to see how this new congressional district would be drawn up, and if it would be an area that was competitive for a Republican candidate. I was hoping that I would have that opportunity, and I know I have one chance left. This district was drawn up perfectly for a candidate like myself. It has the old North Las Vegas, the old Las Vegas people that know my family well, know myself, my parents, what we've done in this community. I think I'll do very well there. But it also combines it with the rural part of Nevada, the middle part of the state, where my family and I have campaigned statewide twice, established long-term relationships with a lot of people there. And I knew that I would do really, really well in rural Nevada. In fact, I won the Republican primary because I won rural Nevada by 70%. So I have a district that is perfectly fit for me and not so for any other Republican candidate, and that I would have an opportunity to defeat a guy the Democrats felt was a shoo-in for the position. This district's 10% more Democrats, and despite that, I am beating him in the polls now. I was beating him before I got in the race. I have the National Republican Congressional Committee moved our race up to the top tier of its Young Guns program, and it's targeted as a third target in the whole country. For us here in the state of Nevada and for our country to take a seat that was a Democrat seat would be a great achievement and would be something greatly worthwhile. Plus, I think I would do a great job as a congressman for this area. But the one area that is really misleading in what you stated there is Amy did not have to step down when I ran. I support my wife in everything she does as she does for me. And I told her before she got involved, she knew I was looking at this Congressional District 4 race. I said, hey, but I'll support you on this because if this is something you want to do, I want you to have this opportunity. I knew if she won, she probably wasn't going to be able to help me in my race, but she's a great asset for me campaigning. But if she wanted to be the state chair, I was going to support her in that. As I would hope she'd support me when I decided to run. She would have stayed on as a state chair, except there were some changes in the board in October. She won a special election in July, and then there was an annual election in October. In October, 2 or 3 new board members came on.
Yeah, matter of fact, Danny, we endorsed her in her run for state chair.
Yeah, that shows how smart you guys are.
Yeah, and
at least in that endorsement.
And I just it wasn't a gotcha question. I just wanted you to clarify.
I just wanted to finish with one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
She would have stayed on as a state chair, and I think our party would be extremely strong at this point. But because of some of these new people that got appointed in October, they didn't want my wife to stay on. They made her life very difficult in the board meetings that they've had. I think they're twice a month. And before I even announced a run, they wanted her to announce that she was going to step down when I was considering it. They put the pressure on her to step down, and she decided that was in the best interest for herself. And I'm very happy to have her work with me on my campaign now.
Okay, well, and thanks for clearing that up. I hope you didn't think it was a gotcha question. I've heard.
Don't compare.
I got
me
a
with
gotcha
the previous
question
guy.
for him.
I've heard that. I've heard that, and like sometimes guests when they come on, I ask them a question, they get really offended. I'm like, hold on, I'm giving you an opportunity to clarify, and I've heard that from a lot of people. So I just wanted you to clarify that for the listeners.
The ironic thing is, every candidate in the Republican primary that I'm aware of asked her to stay on. Not one of them wanted her to step down. It was only some of those board members, primarily up north, that made that request.
Well, and don't take this as a slight, but I was more talking about, I just really thought that she would be magnificent in that position.
She was, and she would have continued to have been that way.
All right.
Danny, Congressional District 4 is my neighborhood. That's my congressional district, and I know quite a few folks out there, and known a lot of folks out there. You hear a lot of things. Matter of fact, I was at the movie in the park at Centennial Hills that was hosted by Councilman Steve Ross last night, and there's a lot of things that people talk about when it comes to this particular race, and one of the things is that that $16 million judgment against you from California. And a lot of people think that, hey, if he becomes a congressman with this over his head, is he going to serve the people or serve himself? to get rid of this particular judgment? That means corruption is all around. Is basically what they're saying.
No, it doesn't.
Could you comment on that?
That's completely inaccurate. First of all, let's talk about the judgment itself, and I'll get to your question.
Sure.
My family, not just me, my family were part of 11 people that invested in a piece of property in Las Vegas Boulevard. One of the partners worked for a developer in Southern California, and for 2 years he was trying to get us to invest with the developer. The developer had a friend who owned a bank in San Diego. He was going to lend us money on our property. We were to lend it to the developer, and the developer was to develop the property in San Diego, in Anza, California. After 2 years, we finally agreed to do so. The developer got the bank to lend us the money. We gave it to the developer on July 23rd. On August 1st, the developer defaulted in paying us. He then stopped all work on Anza, California, never put any of our money into developing the property, filed bankruptcy thereafter, and then a few months later we found out that he took part of our money to pay back the bank that lent us the money on a loan that developer had with the bank that he was defaulting on. We believe there was clear evidence of a fraud. We couldn't go after the developer because he had filed bankruptcy and the time had passed. So we sued the bank. We got a judgment, an injunction stopping the bank from foreclosing on our property based upon our likelihood of success in the case. The FDIC comes in and closes the bank down, says that they've committed unsavory and unsound business practices. And we figure, okay, they agree with us. This bank has done some bad things. So instead, they come after us, sue us personally. And there's a federal statute out there that says if you cannot use fraud as a defense against the FDIC unless it's specifically written in the loan documents, where anybody understands you don't write the fraud in the loan documents, you do it outside the loan documents. So basically, there's no chance of fraud. So we lost in the lower court. We're using our constitutional rights under the United States of America's judicial system, and we filed an appeal with the Ninth Circuit, and we're going to fight that appeal. If we lose the case, then we have to face the judgment and decide what to do with it. That has nothing to do with me being I forget if you use the word corrupt or my family was defrauded. We're the victims here. We didn't do anything wrong except we trusted somebody we probably shouldn't have trusted. That being said, how would that affect my job in Washington, D.C.? Well, first of all, if I won this race, I couldn't do anything involved with the FDIC, or there'd be a complete conflict of interest, and I would be probably thrown out of Congress, and I wouldn't never do anything like that. We're going to do this as Americans should do it, the proper way through the judicial system, and the next step is the Ninth Circuit Court.
So, Danny, the question I have for you is, why do you think, and this is a generalized statement, why do you think that you get asked all these tough questions, and you answer them? Okay, the two questions that were just asked by me and Steve, those are tough questions. How come your opponent doesn't get those tough questions?
Well, he won't go on any tough shows, first of all. I mean, it took him a year to get on the Ralston show, and then he got on there, and all he did was study up on his Obama talking points.
Well, he already declined that show.
No, I watched that show, and I was getting a little nauseous. But
he won't come on this show. Last time he'd been on this show was a few years ago. He already declined our offer.
So, I mean, why do you think there is that? I mean, I don't want to put you in a tough spot here, because anytime a Republican running for office claims media bias, they're like, oh, here these Republicans go again. But I mean, to me, you've always been a fair guy with me, and I just don't get why we ask you these hard questions. You're answering them, but your opponent won't do that.
I'm not going to bash on any of the media here in Nevada. Everybody can make a judgment for themselves if they think it's fair or not. I fortunately, for me to run into these type of races, I grew up in a family that had been scrutinized by the media, had to face articles that we may not have been felt was fair, and you learn to live with those things, and that's fine. I don't believe you gain anything by backing down from media requests. In fact, I think if you go on the show and you believe what you're saying is true and you don't have anything to hide, you go on the show and you talk about them. And I've done that. I've never turned down a Ralston interview, even though for many times those were very contentious interviews. I went to HIP just the other day, the Hispanics in Politics, which is a very Democrat-leaning organization, and against the advice of my campaign consultants. And I said, hey, listen, I'm going to face them and talk about what I believe in, and the ones that agree with me will, and the ones that don't weren't going to vote for me anyways. I would hope that more candidates would do that. Obviously, my opponent in this race does not feel the same way, but that's his choice.
Could you tell us your plans for Congressional District 4 and the state of Nevada?
Well, there's two things that are huge in our district, and as you know, Steve, the foreclosure rate and the home situation in CD4 is the worst in Nevada, and Nevada is the worst in the country. I've talked about three different things, and I don't know how much time we have because it takes a little bit of things, but we can do some things in the housing market through the free market principles without violating our Constitution that can help the housing crisis here. First thing I talked about is that they call streamlined refinancing. It would allow people that are current on their mortgage now to take advantage of the historically low interest rates and refinance their homes at the lower interest rate, irrespective of the value of the home right now. Right now, there is currently an artificial cap that you can't refinance if your home's worth 125% or less of what your mortgage is. Second thing we can do is a lot of people had purchased a home when both spouses were working or they both were being fully employed. Now, because of the economy, one of them may have lost their jobs and they can't afford a $400,000, $500,000 home. So they lose their home in a foreclosure or in a short sale. Well, why don't we allow those people to go in and buy a home they can't afford based upon their income compared to what the mortgage is? If it's between 25 to 29% their mortgage to what they earn, let them go buy a cheaper home at $200,000. You're going to ask, why can't they now? Because their credit is ruined, at least for the few years, foreseeable years, because of their foreclosure short sale. I call it a credit holiday. Allow people who are qualified to buy a cheaper home to go do it right now. Third one's a little bit more complex. We could talk about another time. Housing, jobs are the other thing that's very, very important. And nationally, we got to become energy independent. We have the resources here in our country. We have oil and reserves that would gas reserves that would supply our country for 200 years. It's cheaper. It's has less carbon dioxide. It's plentiful, and we can get it out of the ground quickly. And what it would do is it would create millions of jobs around the country, billions of dollars in sales revenue, and keep the money that we're paying for energy here in the United States instead of sending it overseas. There's some other things we can do. One thing locally, a lot of the valuable commercial property that we have on South Las Vegas Boulevard and others is held by the BLM. The BLM shouldn't hold any commercially viable property. That should be given to the state. Allow Governor Sandoval and his economic team to go around the country and try to use that land, which is basically generating nothing for us right now, to bring in other industries to relocate here. Those are a few things.
Are you willing to support the Stolen Valor Act?
Well, the one I assume that you talk about, the Congressman Heck is going to rewrite, and from my understanding of it, of course I would.
Okay. Jim?
Sure. I know we're running short of time. I want to say one other thing about my district. Tomorrow there's going to be the opening of the new VA hospital. It's not quite $1 billion itself, but it's $1 billion when you count that.
You mean Monday?
Oh, yeah, I keep thinking today's Sunday. You're right. Monday. In 2 days from now. And I just want to say, for our country, not to take better care of the veterans who have put their lives on the line. Many of them have been maimed, and others have passed away in the line of service for us. And we don't make them the top priority with our tax dollars. There's a serious problem in our country. When you look around and you see that we're giving a company like Solyndra almost $1 billion of taxpayer money, and they fail. We get nothing out of it. You see the GOA waste almost $100 million, $1 million, right? No, $100 million. Whatever they waste on the convention here in Las Vegas, right. But they can't find money to take care of veterans here. It's a shame. This is the first VA hospital they've built in the United States since 1998. And it's taken them, almost a decade to get this one built. We have 250,000 veterans here in Nevada, going all over the city trying to find different services because they're in all different locations. What I'm trying to say is it's about time we get this done. We need to take care of the veterans first, and I will be a strong voice for the veterans when I go back to Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Danny, I just think that you might be a little too smart to be a politician, and that's a sad statement. I hate to say, but you're a very intelligent man, and I wish you all the luck.
Well, I appreciate that, but it's common sense, and really it's just articulating common sense. I think most people agree with these principles, and we need more people like that back in D.C.
Danny, could you give us your website and contact information?
Sure. It's, my website is DannyTarkanian.com, and we could really use some volunteers, and we're also starting a Veterans for Tarkanian committee. If you want to do either one of those two, go to the website and sign up, or you can call us at 1-855-TARK-CD4, TARK-CD4.
Danny, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Folks, that was Danny Tarkanian. He's the Republican candidate for Nevada's newest congressional district. District number 4, and District 4 is located in the northwest area, and I believe they have a few rural areas too. Danny, what you want to tell us about?
Yeah, it includes Lincoln County and White Pine County on the east side of the state, Nye County, Esmeralda, Mineral, and half of Lyon County on the west side of the state.
This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. Until next week.
Views and opinions expressed on this program were those of the hosts and guests and did not necessarily reflect those of Vegas All Net Radio, its affiliates, or its parent company.